Everyone. We are back with another exciting workshop. I am Hadia Malik, and I thank you all for being a part of this workshop. For everyone who's joining in for the first time, before we begin, I'd like to tell you about Qureos. And Qureos is a platform where we're changing the way you learn and earn. We are on a mission to transform 100 million careers, and we're doing that through these sessions where we have conversational learning. We're giving apprentices bite-sized learnings from industry experts and mentors, and then we put them together with projects where you can apply all the knowledge that you've learned. Currently on the platform, we have multiple cohorts and workshops available. And also, we're coming up with many new exciting learning streams. If you want to accelerate your learning journey, you can be a part of Qureos just by signing up at www.qureos.com. Also, we have our Slack tribe where you can interact with future market leaders and stellar mentor community. We'd really love to see you there, and the link for the Slack tribe will be mentioned in the comments. Just feel free to sign up there, and we'd love to get to know you better. Talking about the workshop at hand, today in this workshop, we will be talking about taking charge of your destiny by setting specific goals and principles in life and then sticking by them. We've been extremely lucky to have with us Mr. Kamran Iqbal. A very brief sort of introduction of Kamran is that he has been working in health system strengthening, public and private sector advisory, and consulting. He has worked as a public-private partnership expert with the World Bank, public sector advisor with PSI, senior advisor at Sindh Healthcare Commission, chief operating officer at Sina Healthcare, head of marketing at Aga Khan Health Service in the past. He is the founder and curator of the Global Shapers Hub of Karachi, which is an initiative by World Economic Forum. From academic qualifications, he's a Bernard Law Scholar at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, studied social entrepreneurship from INSEAD, Global Climate Health and Equity Fellowship from George Washington University Milken Institute of Global Health. His passion is to solve complex problems using creative solutions. He's always curious and learning. He's a proud husband and a father of two. Thank you so much, Kamran, for being a part of this workshop.
Thank you so much, Hadia. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, and thank you, Qureos, for inviting me here to interact with all of you. And as the name goes, Qureos, I'm always driven by the curiosity. I'm looking forward to learn from all of you. As a matter of fact, it has to be a two-way, but in a way that I'll be sharing some information and knowledge I've gathered over a period of time, processed, a kind of framework which kind of helped me work and thrive, and perhaps in the hope that it helps everybody here work and thrive in their own ways. That's the idea here. So with that, just let me know when to start. Are we going to wake? Okay, I can do the screen share. And hello to everyone, in different parts of the world. It's such an amazing platform this Qureos is. I'm just going to take a second and going to add my slide deck. Just hold on.
And while you do that, I just want to share with everybody that you all free to share your comments, questions, suggestions in the comment section. We'd be very happy to take them, and we'd love to know your ideas regarding whatever it is that we're talking today. Also, the session is going to be recorded, and you will all be able to access it later as well. So that's all from my side. Over to you, Kamran.
Yeah, thank you, Hadia. Well, as the Google goes, when you do the screen share in the Google, it just shows the screen to the presenter himself. So perhaps Google has to go through some trajectory of making it better for the presenter. So here I am. So just like Hadia introduced me, I just want to add here. So the whole journey was starting when I was young. I was confused. At least the youngsters I meet these days, they have a relatively better sense of life that I used to have back in those days. I'm assuming most of the people who have joined here are youngsters who are trying to figure out the way through life. And this is the presentation for them. This is the presentation for the people who have that flicker, the flame inside of their heart, just to be the best version they want themselves to be. So I would want to start with this. Now, when we are born and when we see TV, cartoon, when we grow up, the idea of our future goes just like this. It's a bit of a romanticism between all these characters that you see. And they are like bombarded from everywhere. You check your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn. most of the time you see these faces as the people to follow, and hence it gives us a bit of a idealism, romanticism about the leadership, and this is where things start getting challenging, because as you can see, this icon that is, for example, me, and then you start comparing yourself, me in when I was this year versus me this year, and all those people, this whole media shows is completely different. Somebody who owns unicorn, started unicorns, did the whole big thing, and where am I in the whole thing? I want to tell all of you, this romanticism is good, but nothing beats the original. This conversation we are having here is to get the original self to outshine whatever whatever the media reality the media shows, and it is possible. And we are going to find the key things which makes your place here among all of these people, but with your own particular niche. That's the idea here. So in all of them, there are few things that are common that we're going to talk about. And what are those few common things, which
Kamran,
at
just
least from
sorry to cut you off, but
yeah,
have you moved past the first slide? Because for us, the screen is stuck on the first slide.
yeah. So I haven't moved. I'm about to move
Okay,
actually.
okay, my bad, my
Yeah,
bad.
sure. So no problem. So this is I want to the idea most of the youngsters, when I meet them, and when we have an interaction, uh, they start with saying yes to everything, and that is a common challenge that I've come across. This is good from the beginner. You get on to more work, get on to more experience, but you know what? You have to define where you have to say yes or no. You have to define where your filters are, right? I just want to share this particular diagram. You see, that white noisy background is your contextual reality. It's where you are in the public, on TV or watching TV, interacting with people. And this is the outside of it. And this yellow egg with the egg yolk is you, right? And what happens most of the time is when we grow up, oftentimes the filters are not given. Most of the academic institution that we go to,
Kamran,
and
sorry to disturb you again,
yeah.
but we're not able to see the yellow slide what you're talking about. We're just the slides were stuck on the first slide for us.
All right, is it better now?
No,
Let
it's
me
not moving. If you want to share
I'm
the
gonna,
screen
yeah,
again.
I'm okay. Let me stop share and let me start off. Just hold on.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. Just hold on for a second. Sorry for this.
No issues, no worries.
Are you able to see this?
It's loading.
Load?
Yes, we're able to see it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I'm going to maximize it. So the idea is that let's start from the very beginning. When we are born, when a child is born, why does he cry? He cries because the world outside is totally different. He's alien to the world, and as the stages go, then he sees his body for the first time. Then as he grows, he identifies that, oh, I'm separate from my mother. As he grows up, then he realizes that, oh, I'm separate from my sibling. Then the more identity takes place. And then they realize, oh, I'm a separate identity myself. And these are the points where filters needs to be developed. This is where we all have to tell ourselves that we have to geofence our inner self. Now, when we talk about the inner self, that's when we develop the filter. The filter is like how we see the world. Now, most important part is that when we grow up, when we start seeing the world, all we have is our parents, our siblings, our immediate surrounding to imitate, basically. And that's where our core values are born. Now, core values, because when we are a kid, we are with the loads of information, but nothing specific. We all see is how our parents acting. That's where the core values keep developing. This helps us in navigating the inner world. Also, these core values are critical in the dark as well. When the world is chaotic around you, and with deeply uncertain world, this core value acts like a torch, right? So it is very, very critical in your early stage of life and career. You identify your core values. Now, how to identify those inner core values? So think of those time when something happened which motivated you to act, and you do not have to think twice before motivating you to act. Those are your core values which you cannot trade off. If I give you like 5 different values and I ask you to trade those values with me, and you keep trading, and you'll be, left with 1 to 2 values which you absolutely do not want to trade. What are those values? Those are the core values. Now, this core values I've mentioned here are critical for maintenance of self-esteem. Now, what happens is that when we enter the workplace, what happens? You see toxic work culture in some organization, right? Where the challenge happens to the core value. Because relative values are in this yellow space. You can always transact, always make some compromises there. But challenge happens when you have to compromise your core value. That's where the self-esteem challenge, it gets challenged. So when it is important to see that challenge, but it is very critical is not to live in that challenge. That's where the idea, this is the sphere of psychological safety, that you have to guarantee yourself. Nobody can guarantee that. So it is very critical to identify those core values, and after this presentation, whenever you get time, so identify those 5 to 6 core values, and reimagine the time where you saw a situation which motivated you to act without giving a second thought. That is your value. Now write those value on a different small pieces of paper, and ask the other person, if I can trade off those values. The values that you'll be sticking around with, those are the ones which are your core values, and these are the ones going to help you navigate the world. Now, these values, you have to consciously protect yourself, because following this value set is going to maintain your self-esteem. And that self-esteem is like your backbone. When the child is born, the backbone is very weak. As the child grows, the backbone becomes very strong. And the self-esteem is like having that particular backbone. Stronger the self-esteem, more erect the posture, more stronger the back, more stronger ability to say no. So these are the core value, and you have to geofence the core you with those core values. Why? Also because these core values in the dark, in the chaos of the world, these are the core values that's going to help you navigate. Let's talk about the relative values. So relative values are formed by our expectations of ourselves in the world that we operate, between the rights and the wrong, right? And it has a constant interaction with the outside world. And this filter, that smaller circle that you see, is a transaction space between the outside world and inside of the world. And we constantly eliminate that signals versus noise. What stays in remains the signal. What goes out becomes a noise. So when it's in the noise, when it's in the signal zone, it becomes all yes. Now, I've seen a lot of students, a lot of youngsters who when they enter into the work, when it comes to delivering upon some work, they apply their value lens, but they don't apply consciously. This is where I want to make a specific point. This is you need to apply your value lens every day consciously, because this is the space of your self-awareness. The sooner you get your self-awareness, sooner you'll be able to make your journey there. This is purely, I'm speaking from my own experience. I was born in a culture where we were told from the day one that you will always have to say yes. Whatever the elder person says, you have to say yes. And we were born with this culture. And what used to happen is that there were times it was so difficult to say no. and not being able to say no, I ended up crashing literally my relative value, and sometimes the core values as well, and operated in a very suboptimal mind, mood, feeling, and emotions. And I have to keep a check on the emotion just because of that. Now, and becomes all noisy. As I grew up, I felt that okay, there has to be a way, and this is my this is how I kind of try to manage myself. That then I identified those core values, identified relative value, used as a lens to separate signal versus noise. So when I'm talking to people, I know for a fact if it's something that attests to those values, something that works well with this framework, works well then. Now let's go to the outside of it, right? So this is the relative value. You need to geofence your relative value, but be able to transact those values. When I say transact those values, it does not mean to compromise, but it means that you're able to relax it a bit, soften your stance with it. So when you maintain the relative value, it maintains your self-preservation. So a lot of people get confused about when to be having a self-preservation, when to have a self-esteem. So self-preservation is your idea of protecting yourself socio-economically and physically. That's a self-preservation that you must do. But you see, when we switch job, we largely do for the self-preservation, right? But what we want to maintain is a self-esteem. Now imagine yourself working in an organization where your self-preservation is maintained, but your self-esteem is not. That organization is you would never want to work at. You're going to work it with your hand, but not with your heart. Now imagine an organization in which your self-esteem is very much valued, but your self-preservation is not. Again, you would have a difficulty in maintaining. So when you maintain your relative value, you maintain your self-preservation. When you maintain your core values, that's when you maintain your self-esteem. They both are important. In between these is your filter to separate noise versus signal. Let's go to the next slide. So when you apply this core value, you will see that these characters around you start fading away. Oh, it's not changing again. This slide, I don't know.
It's changed now.
It changed now? Okay,
Yeah,
it takes a while. Yeah. So when you start, when you enter into this zone, you'll find that those character for which you were told that they are the best, either through TV, media, peers, or your own impression of them, through some meeting, through some exposure, you've learned something good from them. But you see, that's where you start getting the idea of yourself in relationship to the world, not in relation to these characters, actually. They start fading away. What starts shining through is yourself. This is you with the idea of applying value set on a relative and absolute sense on daily basis. Yeah. So let's talk about, let's take it to the next level. So this is a deeper slide. I want you to pay really good attention here. So this is the next stage. So first stage, you identified your value. You, from your heart, right from your heart, you started setting your boundaries well. Now let's talk about your place in the system, and what are you going to do? So once you identify your value, third piece, most important piece, is you have to identify from the social context your own awareness. So when from the value, you start getting the awareness, right? I hope this slide is visible. Yeah. Yeah.
We're still stuck on the romanticism slide.
I don't know. This is with the Google. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yes.
It changed at the end. Also,
Yeah,
guys, everyone join in if you want to ask any question, if you have any comments, suggestions, we'd be happy to include them, make it a part of this conversation. Kamran is going to be taking all the questions or comments that you have. It'd be great to have sort of a brainstorming session where we can exchange ideas and we can learn from you and you can learn from us.
Yeah. So I hope it is visible. I'm re-adding here.
Yes.
Yes. So here's the thing. So also I would suggest if जब हम question answer session, whenever we switch to question answer session, and I'm hoping this to be an interactive session, more questions coming in. So this is a framework that is very, very critical. So the idea is to get the social awareness. This is to come up with your own social theory of social change. Like, what do you want to do in the world? right? So how it starts. So when you meet the conflict, when your value set meets the conflict, that is the tipping point between you and social theory of change. When you see injustice, say for example, when you see inequality, for example, when you see climate, issues or any issues that is personally affecting you, that is where you develop your own theory of change, because this is coming out of the awareness of yourself and a social context of awareness. But this is an area that's where you have to build a competency and skill-based view. Let me share my personal example. So I was studying medical. I went to medical college, one of the private medical colleges here, and I specialized in critical care medicine. So every day, I used to see patients who were ICU and CCU. So there were patients for diabetes and hypertension. I always used to wonder, if I'm going to practice here every day, how it is going to, how am I going to change the world, right? Am I made to treat diabetes patient in the critical situation every day? So if on a larger scheme of things, how many patients would I be able to treat in my lifetime actually? And I used to ask to the mentor. So there was no answer for it, frankly speaking, that could satisfy me, right? And I was seeing patient after another patient, and I used to ask those patients, most of them in their deathbed actually, okay, what are the biggest regrets in their life? Most of them, they used to say it's all about relationship of themselves with other people, and if they knew and they had given attention to their inner voice, the world inside of them and around them could have been so much better. The relationship and everything around them. And that motivated me and accumulated over the period of time, became a tipping point. Then I moved from there. There was one personal event as well when my father was sick, and the health system overall failed to diagnose it properly, and we had to go through quite a challenging clinical round and situation to identify, and took us a while. The delay cost his life actually. So then that became a pivotal point. Then started working on system. I took a break, then actually consulted the value set I'm in. Then I also tried to get few mentors. They told me, look, Kamran, you have to compound what you want to do. What you want to do in the world, what is your experience, and what is out there in the world. You have to compound and make it so, and make sure that you develop your skill set. So that becomes a theory. So my theory of change is that, at least from my angle, when I started, that I want to change the health system, right? So that a lot of people can benefit, to be able to work in a system where millions of people become beneficiary, not one patient after another patient. That's what my life is supposed to be. And that's where I went on developing my competencies, my skill base. Most of my work was around that particular idea, right? So after that comes your individual theory of change, right? I hope slide is visible. How do you slide?
It's still the same, the last one.
Okay.
You can remove it from the slideshow.
Yes, I think it's much better. I've removed it from the slide. So is it better?
Can you change the slide so we can see?
Okay, just a second. Just a second. Um, is it changed?
Yes.
Is it changed?
Yes.
Great. So yes. So I will probably mention it with the cursor here, right? So if you look at the horizontal axis, this is the x-axis. This is social theory of change. This is where you need to identify a particular social area that is most personal interest to you. This is where your value set meets the friction, and you want to correct that cognitive dissonance. Now, and this vertical line that you see, this is the mindset. This is a social awareness and competency-based view, and the vertical, the y-axis, the mindset and character trait view. This is the self-awareness. I'll come to the self-awareness part, because social awareness, we get feedback from the people in our peer circle, in our organization, in our surrounding. But this vertical theory of change, individual change, the mindset and character set is the most difficult one, because nobody gets the feedback but yourself. In between all these, when the social theory of change meets your individual theory of change, right? This is the KOP, your key organizing principle. This is your internal homing device. This is when this is aligned, when you know what you want to do in the world, and when you know who you are is aligned, that becomes your key organizing principle. That becomes the progenitor of whatever is around you. That becomes, you become the creator of your own world. And when you consult it, very often this becomes your internal homing device for the sense making. Think of it this way: if you are traveling from one place to another place, you do not have any information. What are the tools that you would need to navigate successfully? Your homing device. That gives you your particular individuality. I'll go to this slide in a more deeper way, right? This is a slide. So I'm going to explain this slide a bit. I hope it's not boring for you guys, but I'm just trying to sum up my experience of working in this world. So this is the internal homing device, and if you look at this yellow line, right, this is your intended envisioned state. This is your intended trajectory of where you want to move. And you see this yellow dot. This is your intended destination. So you want to have moved from this trajectory. This is the intended trajectory you want to move your life on. And this z-axis is your attitude. Now, when the rocket is fired from Earth to the space, so that has an attitude of flight. There's a flight attitude to it. When the flight attitude is changed, which we call it attitudinal shift, right? So when a person does not have awareness of his own social theory of change and his own individual theory of change, what happens is the blurring of key organizing principle. When the key organizing principle is blurred, the homing device is weakened. Then the person can go directionless. And what happens is the person living the life in consequence to what is happening to him over the period of time. So this is a reactive living. What I'm trying to propose here is a proactive living by identifying your value set, your social theory change, your individual theory change in a more proactive manner, and identifying your journey in the same way you plan, in the same way the world plans firing the rocket. Each and every path is calculated and planned, and this is how it goes. Although life has a way of giving us surprises, but does not stop us from having a planning. So when the person's key organizing principle becomes weak, it goes down a bit. This is called the mission drift. This is non-intended trajectory, non-intended destination. Now the secret lies in the decision you make every day. So if you are consulting your key organizing principle every day, and we are going to simplify this in the next few slides. If we are going to simplify the key organizing principle and you're going to consult it every day, there is a chance that you are not going to fail. There's a sure way guaranteed. At least from my viewpoint, I've been working on. It has always have prevented me from going sidetracked. So the inability of theory of individual change and theory of social change to meet at the center can lead to the failure of the homing device. Right? The key is to identify and mitigate early. So let's move to the next slide. Just hold on. So this slide is about this slide is about this vertical, this mindset, this personal awareness view, this character trait view, the theory of individual change, right? Whatever the theory of individual change you're going to embark upon, right? But the most difficult part for anybody is to have this personal awareness of themselves, right? So this is the critical part, right? So the challenge is not that there is no sense making. The challenge is actually the poor fitness of sense making. We all as humans are always doing the sense making around the world, in our job, in our life. We are always sense making, interacting with the people. But what happens commonly is that there's a poor fitness of sense making. Our view of the world and what we want to do does not match with what's happening in the surrounding. There's a poor fit with the market, actually. Imagine, in MBA, they talk about product market fit. Here we are talking about our lives fit with the world, actually. And that's where the life fit with the world does not happen if we don't do our value proposition right. in a simpler mind. So it's so the idea of in this slide is about, it's a framework about raising the homing device to a midpoint, the vertical theory of change. This is interpretive tool. So I've seen a lot of people in the leadership role have a confirmation bias. They surround themselves with the yes people only, just to confirm what they are thinking, and that's where they are. They move away from the market, the people, the people who have put them on this place. Why? Because they lose the sense making. They lose this particular homing device when they distance themselves from a colliding perspective and the heat experience. Let's talk about each part one by one. So asking daily the what, if somebody asks you, what are you doing? What are you doing daily? What is that? What is that? So it exposes you to the heat experience. That heat experience, constantly challenges you to ask yourself what needs to be done. It breaks the habit pattern. Opens individual mind for search for better ways. So it is important to break your habit pattern very often. But the idea is that not to live in the heat experience all the time, because that can lead to anxiety, a lot of stress. But it's very important to have a repeated, a time distance exposure to the heat experience, and go, and you have to select and go and seek out extensively. Get yourself challenged by the question of what. This is the critical path. On the right-hand side, if you look at it, the whys, exposure to the colliding perspective. And this is the most difficult part, because what happens is that when we develop our own model, and we're generally not open, or very least open to the different perspective. Because what happens when people say different perspective, or the exposure to the heat, or different colliding perspective, it unsettles the mind. And the mind find it very peaceful when it sees or confirms the stability around itself. Now, colliding perspective shifts that, threatens that, and the mind feels very much stressed out. So the asking question why and finding the answers to why is the most settling aspect in our life. But you have to ask daily the what and the why. So why gives you the different diverse perspective. It breaks your mental models, right? So if you have a practice of breaking your habit patterns and mental model, you enter in that space of how, like consistently elevated sense making. How am I going to do this? Because the information, what you have gathered, you're breaking your habit constantly. You're breaking and improving your mental models constantly. So it helps you give the sense of how. It integrates and makes sense of new perspective and develops into larger advanced perspective, which is a path-breaking journey. So in order to get into the path-breaking journey, it is very important that you allow yourself in your life the accountability mechanism from self and others of what, and self and others from why, and you navigate with your homing device in terms of how. Now, before I move to the next slide, let me share with you one important lesson. I've read a number of people, met a lot of people from different socioeconomic class, and because I come from the development sector and also work in the corporate sector, and those people also include millionaires and billionaires in different parts of the world. And during meet them, I often just wonder why, what really changed them really, especially the wealth part. A lot of people ask me that. What is that one thing, Dr. Kamran, you have researched? So what I've noticed that most of the people who have, who have been so exemplary in creating unicorns and all those big companies is the beauty of executing how. Look at, for example, Coke, Pepsi, on all these. These are like sugar drinks, basically. Yet they make billions of dollars business. Why? Because they've figured out the how part. In life, if you're looking for the abundance, you need to improve upon the how part. If your how part is very much refined, it will accumulate a lot of abundance around you in terms of money. Because the world does not lack what and why. The world lacks how, because how is where the problem gets solved. How is when you solve it, people willing to pay from their pocket about the beauty of how you solve the problem. This is why the how is critical, you know. So if, for example, if you identify something in your community, in your surrounding, which is a pain point for yourself and for the people, you figured out how to solve it in an innovative way, or perhaps the same problem in a different geography, in an innovative way which pre-existed, you still create for yourself and for others a mean for abundance. So this is where once this is a slide to share, to identify your place in the system. I call it a will and skill model. This is the framework, right? So just to simplify this slide, I know it can be very dense, but just to give you one example, you see this y-axis. This is a motivation continuum. This is your will, basically. How much willing are you to do something? This x-axis, you can see this is your skill. How skilled are you in doing the thing that you want to do? Ideally your own thing, but if you're working with organization, you know how your skill set matches with that. When you start new in life, what happens is that your will is very high and the skill is very low, right? And in some cases, in some student, both of these are very low support and low strengthening. You know, so these are rookies. The best strategy to help them is to tell them is they don't need praise. Is they need information. They need clarity. The moment the thick dirt of clarity is removed, the motivation shoots up high. You know, the difference between an unmotivated and motivated person is that of clarity, right? Once the clarity comes in, motivation goes high. So this is where it becomes very, very critical. So anyone who is in the tier 4, you know, with low motivation and low empowerment, low skill set, the first thing needs to be done is to start with the motivation. How to motivate is also the tool for the team management, by the way, right? How to motivate. You don't need to praise them. You need to give them clarity. Once you give them the clarity, they move high on the motivation. Now, I'm assuming that the talk that is being attended here by a number of you in a different parts of this continuum, actually, right? You know, so when we enter new in the career, what generally happens is that we are high with the motivation. We have more activist hat, or we wear more of an activist hat. We try to contribute, you know, in which case the task of the leadership is high praise and high tell. Praise much and tell them more. It makes them better, because what happens is that this x-axis, the empowerment, the skill set is actually very strange when you begin working in any organization. As with the time goes, it starts expanding on it. So, and as you become industry veteran, it goes like this, you know, on this tier 2. So this is where you don't need motivation. You're already motivated, and you are actually on the high strength side. You have developed the skill, but what happens is that you still need support system around. You need resources. You have the motivation, yes, but motivation goes low with the availability of resources. But you need resources, but you are very skilled. So these are the people who are advisors. Most of the advisors are, you know, fit this kind of framework. And comes the fourth, the captains, right? These are the people who have highly skilled, highly motivated people. These are the people who make the leaders, by the way. And you can actually identify in the crowd, you know, by the body language, by the quality of work they do. In any organization, any country, political leadership or organization leadership or peer leadership, you can actually identify. Also, I want to give you a lens from the organization perspective. When you are applying in different careers, you can use this lens very well. Why? Because you look at, say, for example, if I am working in a health system, all right, and I want to know the health system and my place or my organization place in the entire in the ecosystem. So I will see how much this organization is empowered and how much is the organization motivated. Say, for example, in healthcare system, because I can give example from the health system because that's where I belong, right? So most of the hospitals are here, like low support, low strengthening. Most of these tertiary care hospital system, they are focused more on the bottom line. They do not contribute to the entire ecosystem, and they are low on the strengthening side. They're working on a downstream tertiary care. And Then comes the advocacy organization, the organization working on health rights, basically. Organization working on family planning, organization working on improving human lives, improving the situation of hunger, climate crisis, and other areas in which human rights get violated, right? So they are the ones who are activists. They are organization active, but most of these activist organizations, they are high on motivation, relatively low on the skill set, right? And there are organizations which are more advisory and consulting. So most of the consulting organization, management consulting or development sector consulting, they are high on strengthening. What happens is that they have a solid skill set, but they are low on support. They can only exist by virtue of dependence of providing skill set to the organization or the other organization. So here the support is low, strength is very high, right? And their organization, they are high strength and high support. So, sorry, coming back to this, sorry, advisor one, organization in health sector, the advisory organization like Oxford Policy Management and all these advisory organizations, they fall in the high strength, low support organization. And then comes the tier one. These are like high strength and high support organizations. These are the captain leaders organization with which large organization, even government wants to work with them, right? For example, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and other banks, development sector bank, all those large multilateral organizations like Gavi, like COVAX initiative. So these are the organizations working on strengthening the system. They are high support and high motivation. This is the organizational view. This is also a person view. In any organization, there are four kind of people you see: people who are rookies, people who are activists. They champion the agenda, but they lack skill. People who are high on skill, less on motivation, and the people who are leaders, who are high on skill and high on motivation. So I call it a will and skill model. This is also a risk scorecard: the ability to do something and motivation to do something. All right. So these both will count. So when you're moving from this, I'll probably skip this slide to come to this actually. So all those four areas, if you set them from a hierarchical model, it comes like this. So if you're triangulating this skills matrix, skill and will matrix, okay, it creates a possible social hierarchies, right? So I don't mean it in a very much of a absolutist sense, but these hierarchies exist in an informal way and roughly in an informal way, and they have a natural fit here, right? So, and it exists in group, people, and person. So if you look at it from that perspective, people who are low on motivation, low on skill, they are at the bottom of the pyramid. As they get better, and at the bottom of the pyramid is mostly impulsive mind. People that do not have as much of a self-control. They jump on quick on conclusion. They don't try doing the analytical work. As they get better with the heat experience, with the colliding perspective, gets their how corrected, so they move to the contributor. This is where they start getting their self-awareness, and they start becoming a contributor. That's where they start finding their inner authentic voice. They become socialized mind because they have something to contribute to, and people start interacting with them because they have started giving value to the people. They are in the business of creating value and delivering the value. And it doesn't matter the size of value and the scale of it, but that's where the original thing comes out, and that's where the contributors. These are the activists. These are the ones who make the engine of the system. And as they get better, they gain wisdom. They start getting wisdom. They become the socialized mind. They high on. That's where those key players are the shapers. They shape the agenda. They shape the way the world works. For them, support is not a problem. They are more about identifying and solving things, but in a way of advisory in terms of support role. But they are the ones who make the neck of the system. If the captain is the head of the system, those key players are the neck of the system. The contributors are the hands of the people of the system. The rookies are the foot of the system, like the legs. The legs have to work, so the system will go. Contributors They are the ones who motivate this, the engines of the system. From their key players, so the key player become, they are the ones who shape. And the captains. The captains are the self-transforming mind, right? They are the ones who self-author the mind. Their mental script is not bounded by, defined by somebody. This is what they have defined by themselves, as a matter of fact, right? Let me elaborate with you with this organization. So look at this. It is moving from the impulsive mind. This is first order mind, right? High need to understand themselves in relation to other objects. They make the bulk of the bottom of the pyramid. This is the journey we all go through. Nobody's born with learned behavior, right? Then comes the feudal mind. This is a second order imperial mind. They looks at control. They have impulse to control things, right? Control over resources, control over time and other resources. Then it goes to the socialized mind. That's where the key players are. The socialized mind are the ones, they start cooperating with each other. They believe in cooperation. Then becomes a self-authorization or authorizing mind, the fourth order mind. They are the ones who write their own script. They are the leaders. They are the champions. They are reaching to the level of mastery, right? And it jumps to self-transforming mind. Very few people reach this fifth order. This is where the mind, body, spirit are in complete alignment with the work with their work in the world. This is amazing in terms of their power. They have a personal power and they have power at a global scale, right? They are the ones self-transforming mind. They are the ones self-learning. So this is the stage. This is the nirvana, or for the lack of a better word, of what a person could do, right? So this is the stage. Now let's come to the tool. We talk about few tools in the back, which was what, how, and why. Mental model breaking, habit breaking, and path breaking. Now connecting with the basic tool. Like humanity, if they have invented something very basic and highly powered, to which we can attribute symbolism, these four, right? Whether you are the CEO, manager, or of your organization or parent, these are the four things that you must make use of. The compass, where are you going? The telescope, the vision, the long-term vision, what you want to do, what is out there, right? Clock, when are you going to do it? For how long you're going to do it? Microscope, the operational view, how you're going to do it. The how is the most critical part, often missing in the discussion, right? In most of the discourse in the world, because people get occupied with what and why generally. So microscopic view is very, very critical. And in the corner, you look at this, the scale, the ruler, how far, the distance that needs to be traveled. And then the sixth dimension, which is who you would want to be. This is, I can't put in the picture because this is where you have to put your own picture in with these twice. Now, let's reach to the conclusion side of it, right? So these are the key organizing principles we talk about. But then key organization principle has a 50 shades. I call it 50 shades of key organizing principle. At individual level, Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. That became his key organizing principle. And that became the principle of every Black American out there. What happened was really the social change met their individual theory of change. And when they met together, it became a movement, right? And that's one of the greatest shade of key organizing principle is the racial equality. To the point they elected Barack Obama, and then recently they selected Black women at a judicial role. At an individual level, one more example here. I too have a dream, says Elon Musk. His dream is multi-planet reality, for which he made 5-6 companies. One solar city, the other Tesla, which is using electrical and reusable rocket. So his company, SpaceX, right? So his idea, his key organizing principle is humanity can exist with a multi-planet reality. That's his idea. So these are the individual level theory of change. They all have the key organizing principle if you look at it, and they are embodied by it, right? They're creating possibility. Now let's expand that 50 shades of key organizing principle real quick. I know it's already 3:51. So key organizing principle also applies to state and the citizen. So if the key organizing principle of you, matches with the social theory of change, your individual theory, so theory of change meets with the social theory of change from a state level, it becomes your key organizing. Say, for example, capitalism is a key organizing principle of American government and American way of life, because that sets up a social theory of change from a capitalistic point of view, and individual theory of change that guarantees a socio-economic guarantee. It becomes the underwriter of the social economic guarantee for viability of masses. Hence, it is thriving. Thriving. A strong key organizing principle can give birth to countries and patriotism and nationalism. So USSR, Russia, Soviet Union, that is. Communism became the key organizing principle. Theory of individual change of people and theory of social change of people met together to become that powerful key organizing principle. And that led to the communism. Now, what happens was, the war brought down this contractual value. So when you make your key organizing principle, your organization to your organizing principle, personal or professional or larger scale, it has a contractual value, and it contracts. It has that magnetism. So the contractual value is determined by how much socioeconomic security it can give, right? So the need for survival growth is both foundational and collective, and shared self-interest. And key organizing principle arranges the means to meet this need, right? So this, to qualify for this wide adoption, right? So the modern sense of in the modern sense, this key organizing principle gives you the cohesiveness, right? We all humans have still the same basic need. Only methods of survival have changed, right? In the absence of key organizing principle, survival and growth becomes threatened. You see, if a person with a high key organizing principle becomes the underwriter and guarantor of the socioeconomic ability of himself and the people surrounding him, imagine the same goes, the key organizing principle goes down, everything fizzles out. This is why we need to find how and why, right? Not only you, but type of government, leaders, electoral process, slogans, constitution, good or bad, are all subject to this absolute value of survival. Hence the system is not after perfection, but progression. And in the last, therefore, your attempt should be to gather evidence that points to the new, evolved, and deeply qualified key organizing principle in the modern context of your life. One that does not stop only at the promise of growth and survival, but lifts the quality of life of all the people around you as a result. Your existential reality is interdependent, actually, not independent. You have to do that continuous fitness of sense-making exercise, daily basis, reach to that point. Why it matters? Because you symbolize hope. All the people you're here, you symbolize hope. Because the world is like this flat, crowded, hot, full of that book refers very, very wisely, full of guns, germs, and steel. Jared's book, right? So you symbolize hope in this flat, crowded, hot world full of germs, guns, and steel. This is why you're the only hope. The planet that you guys are inheriting it tells you a lot about how much challenge the previous generation had with the fitness of sense making, right? And the hope lies on you to how to change it. So early you get the fitness of sense making, early you get this value, early you mark this geoffensive value set and protect the earlier the better. And this is the last slide. And you can access to Qureos Media. So these are the links. You can access Qureos Media and read about it. And sorry, I forgot to put my details here. So this is pretty much it. Yes. So yes, question and answers. I hope there's.
Great. Thank you so much, Kamran, for sharing your insights. This was a very interesting thing to look at, just to sort of understand that we need to have a key organizing principle in life. And we have been receiving a lot of comments. We have Faizan, who's saying that it's a beautiful way of putting it. Your existential reality is interdependent. And everyone who's joined in, I'd really like to thank you. And with the questions, I think I'd like to begin with my question that I want to hear from you, Kamran, about. So I just want to know that would can one have more than one key organizing principle, or it just has to be something specific that you need to go with?
So the key organizing principle has to be single. At the end of the day, it becomes one. It has to be particular single one because it is organizing. It has to be single nuclear. It has to be have a nuclear value. That's what it is. It has to be single particular one, so that you can laser sharp your focus. Right? It's like a laser, right? You have a scattered energy. When you just focus to one point, when it hits that particular point, it changes the very point it hits that. So it has to be very sharp, single focus. So I hope when we are not confusing that a key organizing principle with the value set. All right, key organizing principle is individual theory of change, social theory of change, with this, originated on the value set. Yes.
Great. And once the key organizing principle has been achieved, do you think it can change or refine itself over time?
Yes, it was definitely it was. I mean, look at. I'll give you an example of this. Martin Luther King, his key organizing principle to bring racial equality, but his way of doing it was his own personal values were threatened, threatened every day. When he used to see racial inequality in his country, and that became his motivating factor. And his key organizing principle was to give Black people equal status in American life. So this Black Lives Matter is still now as a global movement. It has evolved to the point that structural racism are being identified. There's a great deal of identifying racism embedded in artificial intelligence algorithm, as a matter of fact, right? Because we are projecting our biases in computer algorithm now, right? So that when the computer starts thinking, it will think bias. So and this is unfortunate. It's not by design, but by I would say we are just projecting bias. So it is a lifelong thing. Actually, it evolves, expand, and scale. Yes.
Okay, great. And we've been joined by Faizan, who's sharing very interesting ideas regarding the topic for today. He's saying that is why there is so much conflict between various key organizing principles. The politics that emerges is quite interesting in the marketplace of ideas. In other words, which of the warring gods shall you serve? Max Weber's words.
Which of the? Oh yes, very true. Just want to share. Now, here's my one more idea, Faizan. Very interesting. So let's give this, willingness, the will model, and the skill, will and skill. Let's give it a score, right? And frame this on the politician, right? Okay, how much willingness they have and how much skill they have. And if we arrange all those politicians with this will and skill, we'll identify very few within the leadership position, and everything, noise versus signal, will be off, right? Only small signal you will find. So we will see exactly who makes who fits this particular character of the leader, right? And I'm a strong believer in having a political risk scorecard, because with a single stroke of the pen, the lives are depending on it. So ideally, we should have a political risk scorecard. Every leader defined by the willingness and the skill, will and skill, to be able to lead. Yes.
Great. Faizan is saying that he's totally agreed. Another question that we have is from Asad, and he's asking, how important do you think mentorship is in order to be able to achieve the key organizing principle in your life?
This is a very, very important question. I'm so glad that you asked it. Very important, yeah. Mentors तो बहुत एक नहीं चार पांच होने चाहिए mentor. Like I can take the chance of speaking over. I hope everybody can. But anyway, so you have to have like 4-5 mentors at least, because why? You alone cannot get the whole 360-degree view of the world. For example, if I'm looking at you, I can look at right, left. I can't look at my back, right? Somebody who have seen the back have to tell me, and I'm navigating the front. I cannot see after a certain distance. I know I need to talk to somebody who has seen that distance. All right. If I'm climbing the mountain, I need to talk to somebody who have lived at the top of the mountain, right? While I explore it. So this is how the mentors. This is why the mentors are for. They give you the framework. They give you that sense of direction and stability. These are the why. This is why I think mentors are a must, not an option, but a must. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I really agree with you that having mentors is a must, which is why this is what Curious is trying to resolve. Just sort of give mentorship opportunities to different apprentices, just so they can build the career of their dreams and sort of upskill themselves as they go. As we're right on time, I'd just like to take one last question, and we have this question from Rama, who's asking, "What is that piece of advice that you'd like to give to young people who are just stepping into their first professional role?"
My key advice would be to start, at least from the vantage point I look at in this noisy world, is to maintain start writing your value set and build your psychological safety around it and protect it first, right? With this, you take you go in the world with that, and keep it protected. That's number one, because while it is going to go through certain shapes, but what happens is that you enter with the head start because you enter as a aware person. That's one thing. The second part is that sooner you identify your calling, the head start you want to get, right? So these are the two important points. Most of the organization, they look for the matchmaking in terms of their key organizing principle, and the candidate does it match that their way of value proposition. You can easily identify with these diagram where this organization, what is the organization's key organizing principle, and what is your key organizing principle, and use it for the matchmaking. Yeah. You can actually divide, you can make a list of organizations you want to work with and divide it according to that particular key organizing principle and identify the ones which matches the most, and you go for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great framework to start with for somebody who's just stepped into their first role. We're right on time, and I'm just gonna take last comments. We have Adnan saying very insightful session. Thank you, Dr. Kamran, for this thought.